Thank you again, Paul. And we're now going to have a session from David Seeney. David is the vice chair of the Friends of the Museum, who are great supporters of the museum and great organisation to join. If you join them, you will get discounts on all of our talk events, and in some cases they'll be absolutely free, and you'll get access to a journal and some other publications. So really worth joining as an organisation. David is a great supporter of the museum. Our exhibition I mentioned earlier, part of the exhibits belong to his collection. I have to say the museum and David's personal collection were kind of, about the same level, I think, in terms of the amount of items. But anyway, so over to David, that you're going to talk about rations using wonderful objects from the past.
We'll also talk about my experience of army food. I joined the army in 1960 as a junior leader in the Royal Warwickshire Regiment. 1963 I went to the Parachute Regiment, and I expected them to be slightly better, certainly food-wise. But at the end of the war, we went back to practically the First World War side of feeding. During the war, these ration packs were developed, 24-hour packs, mainly for special operations, commandos, paratroopers, SES sort of thing. The rest of the army had that First World War central feeding, and I was surprised when I got to the Parachute Regiment, they still had this First World, or had gone back to this First World War feeding. So on an exercise, in the dark, you suddenly get, you're going back for your food, and the quartermaster had prepared some food a couple of 100 yards behind the position. So you get your mess tins, and you'll be wandering along, your rifle, you go back, you get your tea in one, your stew in the other, and you start walking back. What do? You trip, you nudge the tree, you get back in your trench, the tea's in the stew and cold, and you're eating it in the dark. So that sort of thing persisted up until 65. By then I was in the independent parachute company in Borneo, and we've been trained by the SES to operate on the border. And we did start off with jungle training, and then first operation, you take 2 weeks rations. Now, even this sort of, very similar to this, but it was locally made, and the tins were like that. You'll see some big tins next door. So that one tin was your main meal. The breakfast was a tin of frankfurters, and the milk was in little tins. So you can imagine the weight, 2 weeks rations, and you had to carry then your hammock, your poncho, spare clothing, ammunition, radio batteries. And because I was being a trained paramedic, I had to carry parts of mine's kits as well. So, and your rifle and your equipment. So you finish £120 worth. But so the only way to cut things down was cut it in half. The frankfurters became one evening's main meal, and you'd take out some of the biscuits, you'd take out something else using, so you've done half rations. That's the only way you could do it. Then gradually later on in the campaign, they brought in concentrated curry blocks. So that was our first introduction to curry blocks, local purchase. So you get a block of curry like that, and a bigger bag of rice, that was a standard bag of rice. And you get lots of brews, because that was the important thing. And chocolates, matches, the usual thing, but it's still heavy. And you were lucky, if you got to a village, then you could supplement the food. They would feed you, so you'd have extra rations, and then you'd help them, you'd throw a grenade in the river, stun the fish, and all the fish would come up, and we'd have a big party with fish and rice. So that helped with the rations. But if you're on a long patrol where you didn't meet anybody and you have to live off half rations, then you come out quite thin, a good way of dieting. Every 10 days you had fresh rations come in, or hopefully you had 2 weeks rations, but if you're lucky you got 10 days, but very often they were delayed, weather, for some reason, so you'd have to sit waiting for the aircraft or helicopter to drop your food in. And on one occasion in Malaya, I was on exercise in Malaya, we waited a day for this air resupply. It didn't come. And the next day, we saw the dispatchers push the bundle out the door, and the bundle went straight through the parachute. And so, of course, this whistled into the jungle. Nobody had thought about packing the stuff a bit sensibly, so you had the rifle oil and the bread and the foot powder all mixed up. Everything was all smashed up, so you couldn't eat anything. And what had happened, because of the delay, they'd taken the fresh meat out, put it in the fridge. Next day they put it back in the containers, didn't tighten the straps. So there was another few days without proper food. Where am I now? Oh, nestings. These came in about 1937. They're still in use, various forms. These are painted black. They're not dirty. They're painted with stove blacking to keep the heat in, and it also gives a bit of camouflage. But now I think they're making them with a stove, sort of non-stick fitting. These are a bit dented because when I parachuted into the South Atlantic, they got a bit dented. So in the Falklands War, the rations changed. You had Arctic rations, so you had a lot more chocolate and things to eat. And the rations slowly got better. But with these rations, you had to have a little stove to cook them in. And on some occasions, you can't cook. But if you can't cook, the condition goes down very quickly. Your hands start to look like, sort of raw fish or something, and your body heat goes down. But they varied the rations, and eventually they started to get the composite rations you'll see next door. So did away with a lot of the tins. They'd boil in the bag. So you could they had a big plastic bag, you put your meal in, pour boiling water in, and you cook. Now they've gone one better. You put your food bag in, probably like that, in the bag, and then you break another heat bag that heats up the water in the bag. So you don't have to bother about boiling water, but you don't have the smell drifting to give you position away. And so you've got the water for the brew, and you can eat your food, and you haven't got a dirty mess tin as well. And it means also you can probably leave one mess tin behind. But that was another thing to reduce weight. Sometimes you leave a mess tin behind, and this is a 44 pattern mug. And the nice combination, this is a later water bottle, you use that on it, so you can cook or brew in that can. Other ways of soldiers always look out for supplemented rations. On one position, I'm no cook, but I built an oven out of an ammunition box, and we used to have what we called #1 burner. It's like a flamethrower, really, used by the cooks. And there's no controls, there's no high or low. It's just a blast of flame that goes down the trench. And you put normally it was a proper prepared tin plate or metal plate setting that goes on top, and you can put your various fixes on the top. But in my case, it was an ammunition box. I got very expert at lighting this thing, just like a dragon. And I made the bread with local flour, and I added army cheese, and just something to do. And with army rations as well, you could always trade them with the locals. The things you didn't like, the cheese or the biscuits, you could trade it for some local things. The other things you used to do, supplement rations. One position I was in Borneo, we liked the odd drink, so we made a hooch out of potato peelings and boiled sweets.
Don't call the doctor.
What was it? The other thing that came in just before the Falklands, lifeboat matches. Because one of the things they used to issue these book matches, but they get wet. And these stay a lot longer, just what you need in the Falklands. And now standard issue, but of course with this boil and heat in the bag, you don't need that. You don't need the tins, you don't need the tin opener. The tin opener is probably about the only standard thing that's remained all through the packs. My wife still uses one. She prefers that. Yeah. I gave it to her as a wedding. And chewing gum. We don't get as much as the Americans get, but they used to put cigarettes in, and you'll see next door, typical American, there's a morale ration, and it's a pizza, it's a pizza. And they only issue so many when somebody's suffering a bit of anxiety or morale, they give you a pizza ration. The worst rations I've had are the German rations. I did a year attachment to the Alpine Division in Germany, and their food was rubbish. Typical black bread, radishes, that sort of thing. So the first time I had a break, then came back, took lots of this tin food with me back.
It sounds like it was very healthy though.
It was healthy, yeah. When you're doing a day's climbing in the Alps, a piece of black bread and a bunch of radishes, you're not it slimmed me down a bit as well. I was saying earlier about the rations, even quite recently, it was standard practice to bring rations up in a sandbag. Now it's okay for the spuds, but the bread and anything else that can absorb the taste, it tastes of sandbags.
Wet sandbags.
Yeah, wet sandbags even worse. What else can I talk about? High-tech biscuits. There's some modern examples there. I was going to let you try all these, but health and safety these days get me to sign. But these are brown. First of all, they were white, and they tried to improve them with brown, and then they introduced what we call the squash flies, the Garibaldi biscuits. So they were better and softer on the teeth. I think. Oh, one final story. When I got back from Borneo, I've been eating curry for months. My mother said, "I've got this new thing in the shops called curry." Anyway, all this experience of army food has helped me with Ukraine now. I'm opening big mouth again. I've been involved with sending aid. And one of the things we send is comfort boxes for men and women at the front. And knowing what it's like in a hole in the ground, I know what's best for the boxes. So I have to explain to my helpers why soldiers will like a particular thing. And I said, they like a new toothbrush because then they can use the old one to clean the rifle. And things like this. I did put a call out for cookers in the early days. We wanted cookers for the front. So people are having trouble cooking. And somebody sent me a microwave. So they obviously didn't understand what people need at the front.
What sort of cookers are you talking about? You're not talking about the big hot one, big
No.
thing.
What I did send out was I bought them off eBay. Just cookers like that.
Camping stove things.
Yeah, but they're just fed with sticks.
Right.
And because the way they're built, just a few sticks will give enough heat. We use tea lights now, that's the favourite one. A tea light will boil one of these.
Yeah.
So we've tried.
You have to stock up on tea lights then as well.
Yeah, everything. Yeah, tea lights, greetings cards. Because the other thing I have to explain to you, they can't go down to the shops and buy a birthday card for the wife or son. So we put cards in the bottom, blank ones so you can send. And chewing gum, oxo cubes I mentioned earlier. So when we do a box, oxo cubes go in all the gaps. So my experience with food in the army is.
And the compulsory toilet bowl.
Yeah, toilet rolls, wet wipes updated now, wet wipes, paracetamol, and of course socks and pants.
Assorted sizes.
Eh?
Assorted sizes.
Whatever they get there to exchange.
One size fits all.
Yeah.
Talking newspaper, one of the things that, like David, I'm ex-army, served 25 years for the regiment. And in term 1 at Sandhurst in 1962, one of the things that stays in my memory is the presentation, the display of how to deal with a 24-hour ration pack. And of course, what goes in one end needs to come out the other. And so toilet paper was included in the 24-hour ration pack. And in those days, he said, you get 9 sheets, you're expected to go 3 times a day. And the deal is 1 up, 1 down, and 1 polish.
That's why wet wipes are better.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you told that story after the film.
Have you got any spare ones then?
The other thing that's now coming with this modern army and everything, you've got all the different, you've got vegetarian rations and sheep rations and halal rations. What they do on an airdrop when you get a load of ration, I don't know.
Did you ever have an experience these big self-heating tins of soup that you
Yeah.
read about in World War II?
Too heavy. Right. That was a problem. They were known as really lifeboat things. You can have them in a vehicle, have your own in a vehicle, but not to carry. The packs don't seem to get any lighter.
How did they work?
There was a central heating wheel, and you pull the cover off the top. You lift the wick, and it heated that tin of soup or whatever it was.
I think it was a mixture of phosphorus and something else.
Yeah, it was.
It was quite quick and quite dangerous.
Yeah, I think they tended to explode on the day. And, certainly spill over the side once they boiled.
And then you got ready to eat.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. I've been without food a few times as well.
But cooking, certainly with the 24-hour pack, what you used to get was a little bracket with what was called a hexamine block. Now, if you think firelighters, that's really what a hexamine block was. So that would enable you to cook, and you cooking using your mess tins, which was used for feeding. And on a dark night, you get stew and meat or stew and veg at one end of your mess tin and apple pie and custard at the other end, which made life quite exciting. But you did everything with mess tin. You ate from it, you drank from it, and you washed it and shanked it. So you had to keep it fairly clean.
But the little cookers, the hexagon cookers, the fuel blocks were very much like Henry Winkler. You have to explain to people who've never used them not to mix them up. Because some people thought, oh, it's Henry Winkler. The other thing,
Soon find out when they tasted them, wouldn't they?
the other thing I mixed up, some of the ration bags had tubes of jam. And a lot of people mixed up the toothpaste with the jam. But the other, with the hardtack biscuits, one of the things you could do to make a chocolate biscuit, you put a piece of chocolate on the hardtack biscuit, you got a chocolate biscuit. Yeah. A lot of time I made a Christmas pudding out of the rich fruit cake in the 10-man packs. And you sort of take it all out, rejig it in a bowl or something, add a bit of rum or something, and that made our Christmas pudding. But we also swapped, in this particular occasion, swapped some of the stuff we didn't like, the cheese and that, for shark steaks. And so we had a nice Christmas dinner of shark steaks and chips. Any questions?
You live to tell the tale.
Sorry?
You live to tell the tale.
Yeah? Yeah. 80 this one.
And we have on the exhibition modern ration packs, so I'm sure, David, if you've got a little bit of time at the end, I'm sure you'd be able to explain some of the rations in there as well. Half that's yours anyway.
Yeah. There is a trial pack in there, because the army was always testing these different rations, so there was a trial pack in there, it was only about 30 odd made. I mean, they've got it right now, we haven't got an army really. The defence force. That's it.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.